Hi guys, my name's Adrian and it's raining outside, so if you guys can hear that then just pretend you don't. Anyway, today's video is about applying for jobs in design and development. It's a field that is actually quite hard to find jobs in because the requirements for applying for a job are really steep. They're really out there because they usually make it quite difficult for people to feel safe applying for a job position. So what do I mean by this? Well, if there's a position for a junior developer role, they might have some extreme requirements where they'll need you to have 5 years of Deno experience. And that isn't even possible because that library hasn't been around for that long, but this is just an example of what I mean. Some junior positions I've seen even require you to have maybe 5 years of experience in HTML and CSS, and again, this is not something that a junior developer would have. So what I want to say is that when you're applying for jobs, don't look too closely at the requirements per se. Look more closely at the job position. For example, if you're having a job position which says that it's a junior role for someone who's just getting started in web development, that is enough of a descriptor for you to be able to apply for that. So whether the requirements mean that you need React or Angular experience for the last 3 years, don't worry too much about that. This is usually just HR people putting in more content so that if someone medium or senior even comes along that wants to apply for that job, they know that there might be a position for a senior role as well. And this is what people do. They sometimes put up a job position for a junior, but they might be looking for 3 positions in general. And this is what I mean by not being scared to apply for job positions that might seem like they're not specifically set out for a junior or a senior in that general role. So what I mean by this is as well that when I've been applying for job positions, and I usually send out hundreds and hundreds of resumes, I usually only hear back from 5 of them or something like that, and even the interviews might only be 1 or 2 from those 5 which I hear back from. It's really hard to be able to get through there. When you do, you'll have to do a coding test maybe, or something like that, where you sit down and you actually test your skill set out to prove that you know what you're doing. And these are usually also quite difficult because they're not made to be passed, they're made so that the examiner can see your workflow. They can understand how you go about solving problems, how you are as a person. And this is more important when you achieve those sort of coding interviews, or when you sit down for those sort of coding interviews. That's what you want to be able to show off, your actual personality and work ethic. And I think that carries along a lot more, especially if you're even unable to solve the problem, but you're communicating really well. I think that goes a long way. I know that I did some of my own interviews where I did flawlessly at the coding interview, but I just didn't communicate that well in terms of the actual recruiters. And this meant that even though I could compare my results against other people who did the exact same coding interview, I wasn't selected. And there were others where I did absolutely terrible at the coding interview, and yet I got the position. And why was this? Well, it was because I was communicating with the recruiters. I was telling them what I was doing. I was telling them my mindset and how I was solving those problems. And that went much further in general to getting me the position than anything else I could have done. Now, the other thing I'd like to point out is that if you're writing a resume, then there are a few things that I normally look out for, especially if I was hiring a person. And these are the actual work examples of what you've done. And this doesn't mean that you want to be able to write down what technologies you use. I really don't mind if you use React or Angular or something like that to create a project. What I want to know is how you went about it and how you solved problems. So this would be such as how you sort of sorted out an algorithm by yourself through researching on Google and that kind of stuff, or how you ran into problems and got out of them. These things mean a lot more than knowing technologies or frameworks, because at the end of the day, anyone can learn any technology or framework. But being motivated and inspired to go through problems and sort them out yourself is a lot more important, especially when I'm looking for candidates. The other things I like to look at is the actual projects people work on. Are they interesting? Because sometimes when you're just out of uni, you might only have your own personal projects to list. And this is where you have to really contemplate what you're going to work on while you're at university and what you're going to present on your actual resume. For me, I like to see things that actually give me some personality about the candidate. That way I get to know a little bit about them and who they are and what they enjoy doing. If I just see a to-do list or something basic like that, I know that they're not really that inspired to work on their own stuff, and this goes a long way as well when they've gotten the position, because it means that they'll just either be getting the job done or they'll be taking a step further and going that extra mile, which is something that's important when you're employing someone. Finally, the actual jobs themselves, they can be difficult in terms of that sort of daunting experience of putting out lots of applications. I mentioned earlier that I sent out hundreds of applications and I only got 1 to 5% back. And this is one of those things that if you're not getting applications back as much as you might want it, you might be losing some hope. Then stay positive for that, because it really does take a lot of energy, time, and applications to be able to get the position you want, especially when you're starting out. Anyway, these are my thoughts on applying for jobs in development and design. I might do some more videos on this, but for now, these are just some surface thoughts, and hopefully this can help you if you're thinking of applying yourself. My name's Adrian and I do videos around design and development, so if you haven't already, hit like and subscribe and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.